This week in PlayStation, we're talking about the death of dreams, our hands-on Firewall Ultra impressions, and if PlayStation VR 2 is already dead. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. That's Blessing. That's Janet. I'm Greg, and you can get this show on patreon.com/KindaFunny. There you can watch us record it live, get it ad-free, and get dozens of monthly episodes of exclusive content. If you have no bucks to toss our way, no big deal. Support us on the Epic Game Store, Fortnite, Rocket League, or Fall Guys with the Epic creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You XOXO with ads. That's right, but it's free, and none of that exclusive content would be there, but you can get it all on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe each and every Friday. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Tripod++, Delaney Twining. Today, we're brought to you by Rocket Money, but let's start with a PSN message from you. Janet, clear your head, clear the mechanism. Marty writes in to kindafunny.com/PSILY, just like everybody can for free, and says, Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Janet, go.
Rebirth.
Blessing.
Rebirth.
16.
Wow.
What? Really?
Here's the thing about it. We gave Final Fantasy 7 Remake Game of the Year that year. It won out our thing. I loved it. It was the first Final Fantasy that I've beaten, and I was like, holy shit, I had a great time with this. I enjoyed it all the way through. There's something about it that over time, I don't remember why I liked it all that much. And it's not that I'm saying it's a bad game anymore. I'm just saying I enjoyed the experience and I enjoyed what I did, but now removed from it, I'm just like, well, the characters were cool. I like the story, but the thing was falling, and the guy buried, he had a gun arm. I was like, all right, yeah. It was
cool.
And like the combat
for house. That was pretty cool.
The combat for Final Fantasy 16, I think, looks doper. The idea that it's just like, hey, it's going to be this Game of Thrones kind of Final Fantasy. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm into that. It's not that I'm not into Rebirth, but I'm just not like, I can't wait to play Rebirth. So in this like toss-up of games that I'm going to play and hopefully enjoy either way, this whole new fantasy crazy-ass world they're doing in 16 with the crazy-ass battles and the giant, monsters you're using, that appeals to me, I think, for some reason more than jumping back into this, but I don't know why.
Yeah, for me, there are different reasons why I prefer one or the other, why I'm more anticipating one or the other. I think in terms of combat system, I've been so sold on the Final Fantasy 16 combat, it being compared more to something like Devil May Cry, it having one of the combat leads from Devil May Cry working on it being more fast-paced, seeing the big health bars, seeing the icon battles. On a gameplay level, Final Fantasy 16 probably wins it out for me, but I think just on a story and world level, I'm more interested in Rebirth. I think both from the idea of what they're doing to the original Final Fantasy 7 and what weird narrative and character stuff they can do with that.
And see, I think that might be part of my problem, is that the ending was I finished the game and I immediately had to call Tim. I'm like, so what's going on? Like, explain why this is a big deal to somebody who doesn't have the lineage with Final Fantasy 7.
1000%. And I'm in the same boat where I don't have as much of the lineage with Final Fantasy 7 either. And I've gone back and I played like a percentage of the game. But I think even while playing things like Crisis Core and I've watched Advent Children in the past. And I think that world is just more interesting to me than the fantasy world of Final Fantasy 16. I think that comes down to the preference of I really like the weird cyberpunk sci-fi world of Final Fantasy 7 more than the traditional Game of Thrones style fantasy of Final Fantasy 16. But I could see going either way. I don't think it's crazy that you're more anticipating Final Fantasy 16 than 7 Rebirth.
Something I think about the fresh start works for me, right? Of all right, cool, ground zero, I can get in, I can wrap my head around it. But Janet, why are you saying Rebirth?
Funnily enough, it's kind of similar to Blessing in terms of the aesthetic and the vibe. I am more interested in a setting that feels more familiar than the more traditional fantasy aspect of what is this, 15?
16.
Yeah, the V and the I and the I and the V and
Janet, I'm with you. Just knock it off. We beat the Romans for a reason.
But anyway, but it's the collective. We were all there.
Mesopotamia. I don't know.
I think too, 7. While it has a little bit of a known quantity aspect in the sense that it's building off of what is an intensely critically acclaimed game, it still has a little bit of that newness to it. So I feel like I get the best of both worlds. It's new to me, and it will probably be awesome because the last one was awesome. So I'm excited to see just what that continuation looks like. Also, it is that weird thing of it taking so long and them kind of bringing it up in a way that is kind of unprecedented, I think, for like a remake of this ilk, to sort of see it sliced up and diced up and repackaged and reinvented, and it's a little bit different. And sure, do I know what's going on in the story? Absolutely not. But I don't necessarily think I'm gonna know what's going on in the other story either. Something about like the work, like I don't know what it is. I kind of just go with it, and that is what it is. I know people love these games for the story, but personally, I didn't like the story in 7. So even though the story in 16 might be more understandable because it is that more of a fresh start, I don't think I'm gonna be coming back for the story regardless, but ready to be proven wrong. We'll see.
We will see, ladies and gentlemen. Final Fantasy 16, not that far off as we hurtle into the summer. And that smell, Blessing, what is it?
I think it's review season.
Review season never ends around here. That's why I'm only playing redacted things, but I can't talk about that. But what I can talk about is topic of the show. So it's going to be a journey here, because you saw the headline when you clicked on the episode. Is PlayStation VR 2 already dead? We're going to get to that question. But first, we're going to start with the fact that Blessing and I got to go to PlayStation yesterday, and we got to play Firewall Ultra. Of course, this is the next VR shooter from First Contact Entertainment. You probably remember them if you're a PlayStation VR 1 person for Firewall 0 Hour in 2018, which was that one of the standout VR experiences, I feel, for PlayStation VR. I've talked about it a million times, of me and Kevin being so into it. You know, me sitting there and talking in the VR world to Kevin's avatar like it was a real person. It's often, and we did the Remember Blink already on this, right? Of like the piece of I can't believe it's happening.
That blew us away.
The games that blew us away, and I listed it in there of like that moment of like, holy shit, this just works. This feels like I am in a virtual. I feel like I'm in a real place. I'm talking to a real person. I'm turning my head and indicating this, and then the way it went on, the way it played, yada yada yada. We are now on the precipice, in some regard, of Firewall Ultra. They were not ready to confirm a date when we were playing this with them. Instead, they were just saying very soon. Blessing, if people don't know, what is your pitch for Firewall Ultra?
Firewall Ultra, of course, is the follow-up to Firewall 0 Hour. It is a 4v4 tactical shooter where you are communicating back and forth with your team, trying to take out the other team. You're playing on different maps. It's what you expect from a game, kind of like Rainbow Six Siege.
Exactly, Rainbow Six in VR almost.
Exactly, like that type of game.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was cool, right?
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who played that much of Firewall 0 Hour when it came out for a PSVR 1. You know, I enjoyed listening to you talk about it and listening to you and Kevin go back and forth about it. I think I picked it up once or twice, and I didn't have the gun that came with it. And so I think I was probably using like my PlayStation Move, and I was like, all right, it's cool, it's whatever. I didn't have other friends that were playing it, and so I fell off of it very quickly. And so I was very excited to check it out for PSVR 2 to see, all right, how are they stepping this forward? How are they elevating this? Is this something that, you know, me, Greg, and the crew are going to play on stream or play at home and have such a great time with? And I'm coming out of it being like, yeah, I think it was a good time, but I don't know if I'll describe it as something that blew me away. Like, I think it is a competent, adequate first-person tactical shooter. It is, if you're looking for a Rainbow Six-like experience in VR, I would recommend it. It seems like some of the big steps forward for this one, of course, are going to be fidelity, because you're working with PSVR 2,
of course,
and the
better tracking and everything.
Better tracking. The step forward with PSVR 2, right, coming after PSVR 1 and the PS5. You know, so like things like lighting, I think takes a step forward in terms of there are some dark spots in the map where it's, hey, you have a flashlight in the game and you can put it on to like lighten up darker areas. They're playing around with lighting a bit more. There are some cool features. There's things like if you have a flashbang, or actually going back to the flashlight idea, right? You have a flashlight. If you flash your flashlight in somebody's face, it'll blind them momentarily, right? Similar to how a flashbang works. And then also, if you throw a flashbang at somebody and it goes off, it'll blind that person. Because there's eye tracking, you can close your eyes in order to avoid that. And it still has the effect of, okay, my eyes are closed, and so I can't see things.
But you
so
missed
I still don't have
flashbang, right? Same thing with the flashlight. You can hold up your. I hold up my real hand, but obviously you have the Move Wand, or the PlayStation VR Move, whatever.
The Sense controllers.
Sense controller. Thank you so much. I'm
Rolls right off the tongue.
so trained to talking about PlayStation VR 1 that I can't switch to 2. You can pull out the Sense controller and you'll bring up your hand and you can block the light that way as well.
Exactly. And so stuff like that is really cool.
And that was my takeaway too, because I think you're about to swing into like what didn't work for you or whatever, right? Like, I think there's a bunch of little bells and whistles like that go really far to using the technology in a new way or a cool way, or in feeling like adding on to the base of what was Firewall already, right? Because that has been one of the ones, we dropped in to do this map, one of the maps, and like, all right, this is a, office building and it's tighter corridors and yada yada. And I was walking around like, wasn't this map in the first game? Like, yeah, 5 years has passed in our world. You're back here, so it's moved. Things have changed, but it is. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I get that, but that's how the game feels. It feels like an additive version and a better version of what you already played. I think with 0 hour, right? And one of those things is using the power of the PlayStation VR 2, right? And so eye tracking is such a big part of PlayStation VR 2, having you in there, watching your pupils. And so again, it's another menu that's similar to Horizon, where you can just dart your eyes around and select via that way. I loved that. I thought that was great. Same thing for weapon wheel. You bring up your weapon wheel, you can just look at the weapon you want to switch to. That's cool. And then on your left sense controller, right, the shoulder buttons are your aim down sights one, and there's the general, or I should say, grab onto grab onto your gun to aim down sights kind of thing. And so there's the, you come over and you grab and you hold your gun. And so then there's one that like brings in, you're a little bit closer. And then there's one that you can hit on. And then it is like super close. And it's like now you're making like minute little changes with your scope as you try to aim and shoot. What was cool about it, that's how it was my interpretation before I got the demo. When they started talking about it in the demo, what it actually is doing is that if you're just holding your gun and you're walking and you hit that shoulder button, it'll bring up that minute scope to wherever your eyes are. So if you see an enemy in the distance, rather than bring up your gun and try to line it, you could hit it and go, and it'll bring it right up to your eye line of where it is. And I thought that was a super cool feature to drop into a game like this. That's going to be, if you're not familiar, it is, meant to not be brutally difficult, but I would say based in realism, right? So it is one of those things of like, it isn't like you're taking a gajillion shots and firing back. It's if you get hit a bunch of times, you go down, and if you're not revived, you die, and that's the end of your round or whatever. Like, it is a game that is meant to feel grounded in what its combat is. So the ability of, and I was not in the swing of things at all, but I could see after multiple matches that being more natural, right? Of like, oh shit, you like bring it right up, bring my scope up and fire on the guy.
Have it be more twitch as opposed to like trying to figure out like how to get your bearings.
Yeah, because mine was all, wait, was it L1 or L2? What was I doing? You know what I mean? Trying to figure it out and trying to wrap it around my head and stuff like that.
And that brings me to one of my critiques of it, which is, man, I wish they figured out a light gun situation for this. Dude. Yeah. I
mean, if we want to sway into a more like reasons, I didn't walk away from, yes, this is going to be a fun game to stream. Of course it is. We're going to do a bunch of stuff, I'm sure, with it. It's going to be fun to hear us yell at Snow Mike and him not know what's going on, yada, yada, yada. We'll have to get more PlayStation VR 2s because we only have 2 because nobody else believes it enough to buy it. But we'll get them. However, it is that idea that, let me, even before I get here, go this way. When I got my demo for Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, I was like, cool, Ghostbusters VR game. I'm obviously a huge Ghostbuster mark. I'm going to be interested no matter what. But like, I remember in the build up to it and like the demo approaching, I was like, how are they going to do the Neutrona wand, right? Because that is, you're holding a stick basically, right? So if you have 2 disconnected controllers, that doesn't feel good, I think, in that situation. And the way Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord gets around it is, it's basically like you have like a Gatling gun. So you hold the base of this side and then the left side of the other, and it's like, okay, cool, like this feels more natural in terms of what it would be rather than doing this and doing a Neutrona wand. This game, one of the huge knocks I have for it is not having the light gun attachment, not having the PlayStation sharpshooter. Because I exclusively played Firewall Ultra, Firewall 0 on PlayStation VR 1 that way. And that was such a big part of it, of having the gun, holding it on my chest, talking to people, yada, 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 and then pulling it up. And so for this one to have the 2 different wands, sense controllers, and bring them up and then feel like I'm trying to align things, and I was like, this ain't cool.
1000%. I think that's, so for me, overall impressions of this thing is like, I think as a game, it seems cool. Like, it seems like if you're looking for this kind of game, if you want to play more Firewall, this seems like more of that. But I walk away not feeling blown away. And yeah, like, I think the lack of light gun is one of the big things. I never felt all the way right just using the 2 dual sense, or the 2 sense controllers.
And another goofy one, but I think a real one for what we're doing here and talking about this, is like when we were walking around the safe house before, which is where you load into missions, you all load into the safe house. We were all walking around. You go to the shooting range, do a bunch of different stuff. When the game comes out, there'll be color your attachments and do all these different things. That wasn't available for us right now in terms of loadouts, but it will be. But walking around, it was this really weird thing of so many people's hands being all like
looking like they're
screwed
like
around
twisting.
And like doing it, and
like nobody looked right because everybody's arms are all over the place.
And when you played Firewall, and I'm not saying there weren't ever glitches in the original, but like I did feel like, since we all had the move guns for the most part, it looked like we were all in the right place, or we weren't wigging out all the time. This one, you look like you're wigging out all the time. I was like, all right.
Yeah. And so like that for me was super noticeable. And then, the flow of the matches, I think there were a couple of matches where I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun. I can see the appeal of this. And other matches where, I guess I just wasn't getting out of it what I thought I would get out of it in terms of like an exciting moment to moment first person shooter. Like there are a couple of moments where, oh man, okay, the team's over here, they're in the elevator. All right, oh man, okay, you get the elevator, I'll stand in front of the elevator and I'll take them out, right? And you do, and you call the elevator, I'm waiting for it to open with my shotgun, and it opens, and there's one guy in there, and I shoot at him with my shotgun and take him out. Moments like that were really cool, right? Moments like that reminded me of playing a game like Rainbow Six or another tactical shooter. But for me, like, throughout the demo time, those moments were few and far between, and getting into combat scenarios a lot of the time felt like, all right, like let's figure out how to angle this thing. Let's figure out how to like aim my gun right. Oh man, all right, okay, now this is working, and it's me. I feel like I am battling more against the controls than I'm battling against the enemy a lot of the time in the match.
Well, again, it's supposed to be this tactical shooter, and it's supposed to have that grounded realism in it, which I think leads to, and it did in Zero Hour to a degree as well, there being not a steep learning curve, but a learning curve of until the gun feels natural, you're at such a disadvantage in a gunfight where if you take 3 shots, you're dead, right? And I'm exaggerating probably the number of bullets, but it is that idea of like, especially you're trying to get your sea legs for how this game controls. It was like, okay, cool. And I'm with you of like, I forget how many matches we played, right? Because it's best of 3. The idea is you attack or defend. You're either attacking, trying to get to, just like you were in the original one, this upload point or this little data thing to broadcast. You got to take out the jammers, yada, 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 or defend that spot. We had those moments, of like, oh, that's really cool. But then there were the other moments of just like, oh, fuck, like I'm trying to back myself in a corner to heal for a second and then figure out why is the reticle down here? I'm trying to get it up. And I'm like, I'm holding the gun or the sense controllers where I feel like the gun should be, but it's a little bit off. So then it's like, all right, turn it, and like, why don't I have the light gun?
Yeah. So for you, as somebody who played a lot of Firewall Zero Hour, were there any noticeable things, I guess, in terms that you would say are big steps forward, even aside from the things we talked about in terms?
The stuff we talked about with eye tracking for sure. Yeah. Visual fidelity, I think it looks better. The maps are more detailed. Back to both the use of things being lit and things being dark. That was helpful. I think it's a creepy environment that way. The gameplay felt, not tried and true, but it feels like you could drop me in there and tell me, Greg from the past, not knowing about VR2 or some shit, that, okay, this is like, DLC or whatever. Like, oh yeah, totally. I get that. I can feel that. Like, it feels like more Firewall, which is both, I think, a plus and a minus. You know what I mean? Of like, again, I don't feel blown away leaving this demo. And what I do take away from it, is where we're going with the question, right? Of like, okay, this also doesn't come to me and be like, oh, I'm going to put 40 hours into this. Oh, this is going to be the game that when I get home and Jen goes to bed, I'm going to call up Kevin and be like, yo, do you want to go do some Firewall? Like, you know what I mean? It feels like we're going to stream it a couple times, maybe play from home a couple times, and then, okay, it doesn't feel like I'm being re-engaged. Like I have to get back to it. Janet, you weren't there sadly because you're in LA. What do you have any questions about it? What do you want to know?
Yeah, I think the main thing so I didn't really spend time with this when I had PSVR 1, and I didn't have the light gun. So maybe that's part of the reason. I'm sure if I had the light, and that's kind of why I didn't spend time with it, because I really wanted the light gun with it. But at that point, I was in so financially deep with trying to get this thing from pawn shops and GameStops, and then I realized I needed the old Move controllers. It was a whole thing. So I didn't end up dipping into this one. But I do acknowledge it as one of the sort of heavier hitters on the platform. Do you think that with Firewall Zero Hour, rolls off the tongue, is this, assuming it comes out in a little bit, couple months, couple weeks, whatever, is this one of the best games to play on PSVR 2? And if it is that because it's at that pedigree? Does that speak to like a lack in the library itself? Like, what are your thoughts on how this fits in with the current suite of games that we have?
Yeah, I think it'll be one of the better games on PlayStation VR 2. I think it'll be one that the PlayStation VR 2 community rallies behind and wants to play because they did with the original one as well. I don't know if it'll make waves outside of that. I don't see this being one that's going to grab somebody who's been on the sidelines about PlayStation VR and really drag them into it and really be like, you have to play this. I think Ryan McCaffrey, who was in our demo session, of course, from IGN, his preview's up and his tagline on it, right, is it's a bit messy, but anything with a pulse is welcome on PlayStation VR 2 at this point. And I really do feel that's the vibe right now, right? As we're getting closer and closer to the question I want to talk about in this episode. Like, I think something dropping and having this much quality behind it is going to be like, oh, great for the PlayStation VR 2 community, for the people who want those kind of games who are there. But this is, back to my comment on Before Your Eyes, right, where I was like, oh, it's the first must-play game. And so many people are like, well, what about this? What about that? I was like, I don't think those are must-play games. Like, I don't think that this version of Firewall is a must-play game. And that makes it sound like I say the other one was. I'm talking about back in that day with that time and yada, yada. This feels like what I think my personal problem with PlayStation VR 2 now, and VR in general, honestly, is that we are still, this is a Dave & Buster's experience. This is a, hey, you got to try this. You try it for a while. You do 3 or 4 matches. Like, oh, man, that's really cool. It would take a lot of time to get really great at it. Yeah, let's go play something else. You know what I mean? Move on that way.
I think I'm pretty much right there with you, right? Like if this was the first couple of years of PSVR 2 or not 2, but PSVR in general or VR in general, then I think my tone on it would be a bit different in terms of, oh man, VR is new, VR is hot, and like look at this, you can play a tactical first person shooter on this thing. I think now that we're so far along in VR, and when I look at the library of PSVR 2, you know, is it going to rise above and enter that space of must play or PSVR 2 games that are in the top 5 or top 10 of PSVR 2 games? I don't know if it's in there for me. Like I don't think it's in there for me. I can probably name off games like Before Your Eyes or games like Gran Turismo, Moss. Resident Evil, Moss that I would recommend before this thing. At some point, Beat Saber is gonna come out for PSVR 2 at some point. But yeah, like for me, there's games I would list before it, and I do look at this as more of a for fans of the genre. Like if you're into tactical first person shooters, yeah, maybe give this one a go. But I think even then, for me, I do like games like Rainbow Six. I do peek into games like Apex, which I know isn't tactical, right? But like a competitive first-person shooter, this isn't going to replace those for me, right? Like it's hard for me to justify to myself busting out a PSVR 2 to play Firewall Ultra when I do have these other games that aren't VR that are doing the same thing but better in non-VR. It's hard to justify that for me. But if you're somebody who really wants to play a first-person shooter in VR, a competitive one, yeah, Firewall Ultra is there for you, and it's not it's not bad, right? Like that is like the thing where I'm like it is. I would say it's okay, right? It's fine, it's cool. Like I would play this on stream and have a good time with it with Greg, with Kevin, with Mike. I don't know if I'm going home and trying to level up and collect all the crypto and do all that stuff.
Yeah, unlock your different stuff for your operator and do all that jazz. Yeah, for sure. Another interesting one I thought was interesting was the idea that like I couldn't figure out how to reload when I was in there. And I think it turned out that like in the shooting range right now you can run out of ammo, so I just didn't have any more to go. But eventually it's like, oh well, it's a press of the button. Yeah. And I thought that was so weird for how many shooter VR games we've played of grab the clip and slam it in. Like I was looking for an eject button and I couldn't find it. And I kept coming up and grabbing the clip and it wasn't doing anything. I was like, oh, hit a button. Like, huh,
yeah,
okay.
I found that too. I feel like it should almost be like more like Blood and Truth. For Blood and Truth, you do have more of a manual, like, okay, yeah, do the thing, and you're doing it in the moment. Maybe it's because it's more competitive. They want to balance it out. And
but it's weird for a game that's so grounded in like how many shots you can take and all this other stuff that it's like, oh, but you're going to reload that way.
Exactly. I feel that too.
Who knows? But this leads to the question. Is PlayStation VR 2 already dead? Put down your pitchforks and torches and or wake up if you don't care about PlayStation VR 2. I want to give you a couple of bullet points before we get into it and have this conversation. First off, we'll get to it in the overall story. We mentioned at the top of the thing, Dreams no longer in active development, right? They're going to close that down. So you can still make stuff and play it, but they're not going to make any more updates for it. One of the things, of course, then that means is that the game won't be updated for PlayStation 5 or PlayStation VR 2. I know a lot of people were holding out hope for that being a part of the PlayStation VR 2 library. Beyond that, a couple weeks ago, we had talked about PlayStation VR 2 was off to a bad start. Ryan Dinsdale at IGN wrote, Sony's PlayStation VR 2 is reportedly off to an underwhelming start, with the virtual reality headset only expected to sell 270,000 units by the end of March. As reported by Bloomberg, the figure comes from a research firm IDC, and while 270,000 is still a lot of headsets, reports last year indicated that Sony was looking to produce 2 million PlayStation VR 2 units to be sold by the end of March. Then this week, PlayStation Lifestyle's Nicholas Tan wrote, Sony has reportedly cut PlayStation VR 2 production by 20%. Sony has reduced its PlayStation VR 2 production by 20%, according to Ming-Chi Kuo, a tech insider primarily known for his analysis and projections on future Apple products. This counters a prior statement from Sony in January, where it denied reports that it had cut production numbers of the headset due to middling pre-order figures. In addition to this critical update that Sony has cut PlayStation VR 2 production, Kuo does not share a positive outlook on AR and VR headsets for the near future in his latest Medium article. The Meta Quest Pro has shipped around 300,000 units during its production cycle, while Pico the biggest AR VR headset company in China, had shipments in 2022 that were more than 40% lower than expected. These figures, Ko concludes, means that AR/VR headsets like PlayStation VR 2 are not, quote, the next star product in consumer electronics in the foreseeable future, end quote. He believes Apple is one of the last hopes that this position might change, but he still thinks that the market may overestimate these headsets over the next few years in terms of their overall contribution to companies and that supply components for them. Then you take it to our own impressions of Firewall Ultra here, right? Then you look down the pipe of what's coming to PlayStation VR 2 that we're excited about. For me, it's Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord. Beyond that, Janet, is there a title that's speaking to you that you could say that's my PlayStation VR 2 one?
I don't think so. That's not to say that there isn't one, but nothing comes to mind because really the only thing I was looking for on this, besides like Before Your Eyes getting another, shot at an audience, was Last Clockwinder, which came out alongside the sort of suite of games. What the Bat was fun. I feel like, Horizon's already out. I don't personally have anything concrete that I'm looking forward to. I just have the hope that we'll see something from like Astro or something, but I don't have anything concrete to hold on to at this point.
Blessing, same question. Oh, sorry.
Well, Bless, really, because you already went.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even looking up articles of like most anticipated PSVR 2 games, right? Trying to even remind myself
on Reddit over on the PSVR subreddit, which is super active, right? They have stuff like Foglands, Synapse, Journey to the Foundation. This is a screenshot of all the tiles where somebody's asking, "What are you excited for?" Yeah. Hellsweeper, Aces of Thunder, Crossfire, Sierra Squad.
These
Aliens.
names suck. They're so bad. Yeah. They're like the most video game names ever, despite being like allegedly futuristic or modern technology. They are like the names that you see in the back of a character's shelf because they didn't want to pay for the licenses of the actual games, which doesn't help.
Yeah, I believe Foglands, one of the ones that you named, does have not a great name, but I believe that's one that we saw a trailer of at a State of Play, and I thought looked really interesting. Is it one that I'm like gonna jump out my seat for? Like, probably not, but it's one that I want to check out for sure. And then, like, I know it's the lamest answer in the world, but Beat Saber, I'm looking forward to. Is that a game that should already be on PSVR 2 and should be backwards compatible with PSVR 1? Yes, but again, like, I'll take what I can get. So yeah, I guess those two I'm excited for, and like, I want more. I think the thing that really, when you read through the list, right, I think the immediate reaction being, oh man, these are some boring ass titles, right? I think it's the fact that, hey, where are the known IP? Like, where are the Horizons of the world? Even though, like, I know for us, Horizon Call of the Mountain was okay, but even more, like, give me a Ghost of Tsushima VR game where I'm using a sword. Or on this morning on KFGD, I believe it was the post show, we were having somebody asked the question of, what is the game that they could put out for PSVR 2 that would save PSVR 2 that would get you excited? And like,
great question.
Can we pitch the game? And like, as they're asking, I'm like, I don't think I can think of anything that would make me think that you can save PSVR 2, right? And get like the wide audience involved, right? I'm not talking about the niche VR audience. I'm talking about the wide PlayStation audience excited about it. And
that again is the whole thing of like, is PlayStation VR 2 dead already, right? It's a loaded question that I know is going to have people hating us before they even watch the video. But the question stems from making VR something more than it is. Clearly, there's already a VR audience. We know that. PlayStation knows that. There's 270,000 of you, apparently, that are going to buy stuff and I always talked about it with, on the shows of like how impressive it was, the attach rate of PlayStation VR and the people that those VR fans bought games. They're still buying games, but we're talking about getting a PlayStation VR 3. We're talking about PlayStation VR 2 being something they talk about proudly during a showcase or a State of Play and talk about like, hey, here's what our first parties are doing. And for that to happen, it needs to break out of what it is right now. And I don't see them putting boots to the ground to make that happen, right? Mm-hmm. The stuff that's listed here, again, a lot of bad names. As a Ghostbuster fan, of course I'm going to play that, but I don't think that's the breakout thing. And then it's like, okay, well, Resident Evil 4 VR, but it's like, maybe if we didn't just get Resident Evil 4 remake, like how many people have double backed and gotten lost in Village since it came out, right? Like, did you, Bless? Have you gone back for Village?
No.
Yeah, right? And it's like, I loved Resident Evil, I always fuck this up, 7, right? In VR. Mm-hmm. Like, I adored that because it was how I played it to start the game. Like, I'm so less interested in going back and playing old stuff that just has a VR mode now. Like I want the new games, I want the new experiences,
And
right?
that's trouble for me when I go. I have so many tabs open with so many different lists, trying to find a list that excites me. Right, I'm on thegamer.com, which we talk about a lot on our show, The Shit List on Patreon, and they have a list that's
For
called
good and bad.
for good and bad. They have a list called the 10 PSVR 2 games we can't wait to play. This list was published February 2023, right? So this is like pretty much on launch of PSVR 2, and their list goes Cosmonia's High, which I think looks interesting, Horizon Call of the Mountain, right? The Dark Pictures Switchback VR, which what's today's date? That's been out for
That's
like
out.
almost a month. And
Oh,
like,
that's out. Janet played it.
It's all right.
okay,
You know, it's
so
like,
there you go.
again, if you want to be on a roller coaster and feel like, again, Greg just really knocked it out of the park with that Dave & Buster's thing, which, by the way, I don't want people to think that means we don't like Dave & Buster's. I
Not
love
at
Dave
all.
& Buster's. I got my Power Play card and I'm ready to go, you know? But yeah, I do think it is very much like that. You're on a coaster and you're shooting some things and it's fun, but also it's like, oh, it's kind of long for what it is. It's kind of long for what it is, you know? It's fine. I don't think that's making any... I wouldn't leave it on the list, you know what I mean, after playing it.
Yeah, but then you have The Last Clockwinder, you have Demio, which I played Demio during the review period, and I thought it was fine. I thought it was a neat concept, right? This tabletop
Should
game.
I play it because, like, or should I just walk away from it?
I mean, check it out. Yeah,
Okay.
like if you already have it, like in your library, I'd say check it out. Yeah, boot it up. You might end up getting into it, right? It's just a tabletop game that you're playing with cards and a board and pieces. It's fun. But you have that. You have Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners Chapter 2. That's their number 5. And number 4, you have Star Wars: Tales from Galaxy's Edge. They have
And that's my thing is like they're listing stuff that, I mean, I know this is a launch list, but it's all the stuff that's out.
exactly Zenith: The Last City.
And we know many of these games weren't must plays.
Yeah, at their number 2, they have Firewall Ultra. Like
Yeah.
at their number 1, they have No Man's Sky, right? And you're
No
talking
Man's
about to your point, Greg, right? Like that is a game that has already been out, that has had VR. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Has had
It has.
VR support for other
Yes.
VR platforms before. And yeah, like we are talking about games that either get a VR mode, or games that are ports from other platforms, or games that like have come out and have not hit in the way that you need something to hit if you're trying to sell units, right? Like I'm looking at Horizon there. And then, look at the other list, and I'm like, it's pretty much the same stuff, right? Gran Turismo 7 pops up on the VG24/7 list. Resident Evil Village pops up. What the Bat? Tetris Effect Connected, again, old game. Res Infinite, older game. Kayak VR, almost made me throw up. Moss 1 and 2,
Kayak
old games.
VR also needed. We do need that stick, which we're not gonna. There's no way we're getting peripheral. Well, I don't say no way because maybe we would.
The paddle peripheral?
Yeah, well, we need like some type of stick solution for the gun. You know, slot it in, now it's a gun. Slot it in, now it's a paddle. Because I had the same issue with the paddle, because you have to do the same deal where you're holding the two different sense controllers and you're trying to keep it straight, but it's like you don't have anything to hold on to. I literally at one point brought out like I have one of those like rolling sticks that you can use for like massage, and I brought that out to try to like create some type of force, because it's just unpleasant. So
that's such a chicken and the egg, canary in the coal mine, whatever you want it to be, of like, I know that I saw it in the chat over there, and obviously even playing it, I know that the Firewall/VR community is so gung-ho that there will be 3D printable guns they're going to make to make this work, but it's still like, that is the level of ingenuity you need to get the most out of that game. Whereas like, I feel like PlayStation is like, well, we already know how small the VR unit is, the audience is. We're not going to make a peripheral on top of that for the fraction of a fraction that would actually want to buy it and play with it. And I think like that's such an indicator of like, all right, cool. Like I stand by that. I don't think the modern PlayStation believes in PlayStation VR 2.
Do you think there's a title that could be announced that like turns the tide in a big way, or a couple of titles? Like the one that they wrote in with this morning was the suggestion that the writer gave was, like the VR game that I would want would be a Shadow of the Colossus in the style of Horizon Call of the Mountain, where you're shooting the arrow at the Colossi and you're climbing up the Colossi like in Horizon. I was like, that's a genius idea that I would actually get excited for. Like that's something that would be there for day one as somebody who already owns VR. Is there a thing for you, Greg, or you, Janet, where you're like, okay, no, this could turn the tide. This is something that could quote unquote save PSVR 2.
I don't. There is no turnkey. This is the solution, because there are so many different pieces of the puzzle that are off right now, and this is always such a frustrating conversation, because for me, I feel like it is such a black and white. Oh, this has been sent out to die. This isn't going to do well. This won't be supported. Why? I want awesome VR experiences. I like the headset. Yada yada. I know none of this matters to the fans that hate me for it, but like, this is not going to happen. But then there's the other side of the coin where people are like, no, it's going to happen. This was a soft launch for it in so many eyes, right? You can only buy it on the direct link, so it's not in stores for people to find. So consider this a soft launch and consider the blah blah. And it's like, I can see that argument. PlayStation has not given me the history for me to believe that argument, right? Like, I don't believe that they are slowly building this out to eventually put it into Best Buys and everything else and be like, look, there's 70 games on it and look all these things. And so it's like, it's not only do they need to get it into stores, they need to actually market it, and then they need great stuff and they need the first parties working on it. But I just believe after PlayStation Move, after PlayStation Vita, that it is that idea of like, if you're a PlayStation first party and you're looking at how this has gone and how this is supported, are you even remotely interested in making stuff for this thing? No, right? Like, you don't want to do that. Everybody wants their game to be the next big thing. I say this not as a knock to they fucked up, but they got a raw deal. Nobody wants to be Sony Bend. Nobody wants to be Uncharted Golden Abyss on this. Nobody wants to be, hey, we're a very talented studio that makes a lot of great games. Cool. Make Uncharted for the Vita. Okay, that's Naughty Dog's thing. No, dude, okay, well, then you're in their shadow. And then nobody likes you because of that. And blah, blah, blah. And nobody wants to be the people who are like, cool, I'm going to go make the Horizon game that is the VR experience, the VR game. You know what I mean? That, like, let's face it, no one's going to ever talk about when we talk about Horizon. When we get to Horizon 3, it's not going to be, oh man, don't forget we got to replay Call of the Mountain to really understand what's going on in this story. No, that's not what it's going to be. And so nobody wants to do that for Uncharted, Ghost. And then but I also think that Sucker Punch, who's I'm sure in pre-pro production in general on Ghost 2 or whatever I called it, Ghost of Tsushima 1289 or whatever it was. Nobody over there is like, you know what we should do? Splinter off a team to make a VR experience. Splinter off a team to make a VR experience that we're going to sell 100,000, 150,000 copies of, like, you know what I mean? That we're going to have people play. Like, that's just not worth it. And so then it's this whole thing of like, I think there's already a chilling effect in the same way. And again, maybe I'm just burned by Vita and Move, but it's just a chilling effect of like, here's this new thing. Isn't it great? No, it's not. Oh, fuck. Well, nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to make stuff for it. So now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that it's dead and it's not going to get any cool. And again, PlayStation isn't fighting that. A lot of people wrote in. I was like, I put up a vlog. I put up a tweet. Hey, is PlayStation VR dead? Why or why not? And so many people wrote in being like, listen, it's up to PlayStation if it's alive or dead, right? Which I agree with to an extent, right? But Blandy,
avoiding the question, I see people writing in. That's not the question.
Blandy Yeet wrote in and said, if their showcase this summer highlights their roadmap, Half-Life Alyx, and what players can expect, and why players can expect parity on the games that are released for MetaQuest 2, then I think they'll survive. Not a fucking chance. And again, that's not because that's a bad, that Blandy nails it. That would be very helpful. PlayStation won't do that. PlayStation's not going to come out and be like, if you didn't notice, PlayStation VR 2's come out. We've had these things. They're doing great. Call of the Mountain, yada, yada, yada. And here's what's going on for the next year, 5 years, 6 months, whatever it's going to be. And on top of that, here's Half-Life Alyx. And on top of that, like, and they're not going to mention MetaQuest 2 and parity all there. Like, you might get pieces of that. You might get, hey, here are 3 or 4 PlayStation VR 2 games that are coming. Are maybe one of those is first party. Maybe one of those is an IP that's been farmed out to somebody else from the first party. Like, I just don't believe. And I feel like that's both me being a student of how PlayStation does things and then also just where PlayStation's at right now. I don't see them coming out and burning showcase being like, let us sell you on PlayStation VR. I see them going like, oof, trains out of station on VR. Let's continue to focus on PlayStation 5 and make you buy a PlayStation 5. Am I wrong, Janet? You gonna tell me I'm wrong?
No, and I mean, to bring it back to some of the like original line of questioning, like, is there a way out of here? Can we dig up? Some might wonder. The answer is probably not. I mean, there's things obviously that I'd be excited about. Like,
sure,
I know we have the Media Molecule Dreams thing. Media Molecule's a weirdo, talented studio. Them doing something in VR would be exciting to me because they, you know, no pun intended, do feel like dreamers. When they sell stuff, I want to buy it. The way they talk about what they do and their vision and their creativity gets me excited about what they're working on, no matter what it is. And I think so much of that energy was in the product that they had made with Dreams. That being said, I'd be kind of surprised if they like did it. You know, I think they're, to me, not to jump ahead, but the leaving Dreams and moving on, I feel like you would want to move on to something that has more potential for mainstream success and accolade. And I feel like VR would be the opposite of that. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just feel like one of the problems with VR, PSVR 2 specifically and VR in general is there. I think the way it's been shown so far with PSVR 2 is so much of that stuff, besides being poorly named titles, it's a lot of the same kind of stuff. Yeah. I look and I'm in first person and I have a gun and maybe I can, I'm looking at the menus with my eyes, and now I realize, holy cow, my eyes never stop moving around the screen. I hate this, actually. I have weirdo eyes, and I've never thought of that until I put on a PSVR 2 headset and tried to use the eye tracking for menus, and it was like, anyway, but there's such a lack of, it's such a rarity in feeling like I'm getting not just a unique and interesting experience, but one that I can only have in VR and that's enhanced by VR. I think they're so few and far between, it amplifies the difficulty of selling those things. And then we think about what those experiences are, how mainstream appealing are those experiences? I love What the Bat to Pieces. I feel like a lot of people would not really care about that game. I think it's awesome, but it's such a specific thing. So then what do you need then? You need a lot of breadth and a degree of depth within that breadth. I don't think they have either. So for whether it's because of lack of support, whether it's because of, frankly, being really ingenious with that kind of technology is difficult. There are so few games that really, really nail it. Like, that list is not that long versus you think of like lists of some of the greatest games ever. Yeah, we can debate, oh man, too many to even fit in a top 25, top 100. You don't have that same feeling with VR. It is a lot of, it all gets bounded together of, oh, well, now I'm shooting and the bullets are green because they're magic or they're whatever. Like, it's like, I feel like I'm seeing the same thing over and over again, and I don't care about it. And then when you try to attach it to, well, this has a VR mode. Oh, wow, Resident Evil VR 8, Resident Evil Village VR is good. No shit, it's going to be good. The game is good. Give me something new. Give me something fresh. Give me something that I can't have in any other way that I need to have here. And they don't have that.
All right, so as everybody knows, I love the Trogs, and I love the kind of funny people, and I love a good debate and argument. I want to talk to Ryan Povala-Higgins. In the live chat, he goes, games take years to develop. Sony must have planned a slate of first-party games for VR too. My question is, what gives you that confidence? What was the first-party slate for PlayStation VR 1? Yes, Blood and Truth, which I see you bring up here. Blood and Truth launched 3 years after the VR 1 launch. Be patient, folks. Ryan, it is 2023. It is the most competitive video games industry that's ever existed. You can't launch this and say wait 3 years for it to be good. That nobody has that time level. And you also, Ryan also said, and again, if you're new around here, Ryan is awesome and is great all the time. So I'm not at all arguing with him or dunking on him. I'm trying to have a very disjointed conversation with him. He also says they've invested too much to bin it after all these months. I don't think they're going to bin it. I don't think you're going to hear Jim Ryan say, hey, guess what? PlayStation VR was a huge mistake. We're done with it. We're not doing anything else with it. It's over. We're not even selling them anymore. That's not what I think it's going to be. I think it's just going to be a similar slow death of the Vita. Cool. That exists. If you like the VR experiences like Kayak VR Mirage and Pavlov and all these other generic-ass sounding games, there are still independent, third-party VR developers who are making things for the Quest and for us and for any other unit that they are putting out there. But back to Janet's thing, they're all running together. They're all the same kind of idea. Back to my argument, there's all this Dave and Buster's machine.
Yeah, that's why it hurts so much that they didn't do a state of play or a showcase that was focused in on VR games, right? The fact that stuff was all bundled together in a PlayStation blog, right, and it's been spread out amongst like different state of plays. It's like, oh yeah, here's your VR section with Demio and an XYZ game. There's an opportunity there to really highlight and go, hey, no, these are the games that make PSVR 2. This is why you should care about Demio. This is why you should care about this kayaking game. This is why you should care about Horizon, right? Like, that is a thing that they need to come at us with and go, hey, no, we believe in this thing, and here's the resources and time for us to tell you why we believe in it and why you should believe in it. They didn't really do that at all. And to Ryan Pavola's point earlier about, they've invested too much to just bin it after a few months. I don't think it's them looking at the scope of it after 2 months and going, oh man, we fucked up. No, we don't believe in this anymore. I think they stopped believing it years ago. Like, I'm with Greg where a long while ago you mentioned that you wouldn't be surprised if PSVR 2 never comes out, just for the idea of how the industry has changed over the years, and like with the pandemic coming and all pandemic happening and all these other factors going into it. It's kind of a weird time to invest in a new big VR platform. And I think maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, right? Like, I think PlayStation's probably like, well, fuck, like we've already we're already in motion. We gotta put this thing out. We gotta eat it if it doesn't perform, right? And like looking at the space, I don't
Get
think
some money rather than no money.
Yeah, get some money rather than no money, right? We've already promised this thing, or people are already expecting this thing. We've already announced this thing. Like, hey, just put it out and we'll do what we do, right? And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see maybe one or two first-party games announced. I'm not expecting anything big. I expect, hopefully, fingers crossed, like something that is here's a Horizon Call of the Mountain, like that is using a first-party IP, and we're making this thing look beautiful. And hopefully, like for me, the game plays better than that, right? But like, I'm sure they have one or two of those in the tuck that might come out over the course of maybe the next year or so, but I don't expect anything beyond that. Like, I don't think 3 years from now you're going to be getting heavy hitters for PSVR 2 unless some miracle happens where PSVR 2 has a wide
And that's a great way to
upswing.
put it. Yeah, I think you're going to see. Obviously, there is, to Ryan's point, games take years to develop. There's stuff, obviously, that's going to be in the pipeline. I do think you'll still see stuff here in the next year and a half that is like, oh, it is a big deal. It is a big IP. Maybe not even a PlayStation IP, but a bigger IP. That'll be exclusive to it, at least at launch. And then what does that do? And where does that go? And is that going to move units and going to change it? Since I have been on top of Ryan, I want to make sure we get his response to some of the stuff I said. He says, PlayStation has invested more money after a bad PSVR. PSVR 2 will never be huge, but we need to give them the opportunity. They've seen something to invest more money. And again, my response to that, and to close it out on Ryan, since like we won't just have a disjointed conversation through the chat the entire time, but Ryan, as always, I appreciate you being a supporter. Thank you so much. I agree with you to an extent there, where I don't even think that PlayStation VR was not bad. PlayStation VR was not, we set the world on fire, this is the most popular thing at all, but it was them starting down this VR journey. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but they were very clear about it. We're starting a new journey. This is like the PlayStation 1 all over again. We're starting something brand new here. I don't think it was bad. I think it was successful. I think it outperformed their expectations. And to what Blessing is saying, which is copying my work from previous arguments, right? I feel like they invested the money then at that point, being like, hey, there is something here. There is an artery that we've tapped an artery here. People like this. Let's double down. Let's put more into it. They did. They got to developing PSVR 2. And as they got closer and closer to launching PlayStation VR 2, and I'm talking about still in pre-pro before it was even announced, the world changed and shifted. And PlayStation VR did run into a ceiling and did hit a thing of like, oh, this is as far as it's going to go. And so then to have what PlayStation VR 2 is now, again, PlayStation makes me think that PlayStation doesn't believe in PlayStation VR 2 being a big deal. PlayStation makes me think that they think PlayStation VR 2 is pretty much PlayStation VR 1. And I would say the experiences we've had on it, for the most part, drive that home. To the tried and true Shuhei, this is a PlayStation 1 all over again. PlayStation VR 2 does not feel like the PlayStation 2. PlayStation VR 1 to PlayStation VR 2 does not feel like PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 for me. The experiences and games feel dramatically like, oh, cool, there's new tech here with the eye tracking or this and the fidelity and the inside out tracking, but it doesn't feel like, holy shit, this is so different than what I did on PlayStation VR 1. Like I said, is it dead? A whole bunch of other responses were written in. Keegan, of course, said, was it ever alive? A lot of people put in that joke. Callum Hurley said no, because despite not being a runaway success, it is performing better than PlayStation VR, which Sony considered a success. With the PlayStation Direct limitation and lack of marketing, I think this is the sort of soft launch for them, but I do believe it will remain niche. Xanagear wrote in and said, if Naughty Dog released a game for it and got a bunch of 10s, then maybe it would sell? Is it too late? I don't know. Maybe. I'm an early VR adopter, but I have absolutely no interest in putting on my headset for the games coming out. Sim racing is the only reason I own VR. And then Gaming from Canada wrote in and said, it's probably going to die at some point sooner than later, but just got mine last month and have been enjoying it. Hope for more banger game releases before it dies out. We, of course, will be watching and waiting, ladies and gentlemen, to see what happens and where it goes. But I love, this, and I hope, and I think that's the other thing too, is like, what we say is, for everything we're saying here, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that PlayStation is biding their time. I hope that they do a showcase in May and it's like, shut the fuck up, Greg. Here are all these great experiences in Naughty Dog's game and Insomniac's game, or their IP, and we've partnered with talented people and yada, yada, yada. And I go, fuck. There are 7 great PlayStation VR games with recognizable names or studios behind that I can't wait to. I hope that happens. This is not me on my throne. It's just me talking about video games and being like, fuck, man, I don't believe that they turn this around. I don't believe this ever gets to something else.
Yeah. I guess for my final answer of is PSVR 2 dead, right? Like, I don't know if I'd say it's already dead, but it is. I feel like we're in that moment of a Fortnite match where It's been downed, and it needs like Sony to come through.
No.
Yeah, it's been you hear the chicken like that jingle you hear when you get downed. And it's waiting for PlayStation. It's
Somebody's got to revive.
yeah, it's dual mate. Like
Well, yeah,
Jim
like, I
Ryan
was
needs to
gonna
come through. Jim, I'm down. Jim, come through.
Kevin's
I was gonna ask that
halfway
next.
across the field,
Of
running
course.
over to
Yeah,
revive.
Jim, where you at? Kevin, where you at? Please. I'm
Yeah,
down.
is there a reboot van in this metaphor?
Yeah,
We
But,
will
like,
find out.
I don't think it's impossible that like it's able to come through and by
If it like I again
Yeah.
like, when we're just using words, it's so hard to be like, what is impossible? Well, what's the metric for success and yada yada yada. If they were able to turn this around and have everyone go like, holy shit, that is great. If they're able to make Gary Whitta go, I gotta buy a PlayStation VR too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like any the everybody in the office, I guess. Because only Blessing and I have our review units. I canceled my pre-order when they were like, we're sending it. I'm like, good, I wouldn't buy this. And that's me saying that, right?
Yeah.
Back when I went beyond episode 1 when I was like, I won't buy a PS3. Like, I don't feel if they can convince people out there to be like, no, we need to buy this. And that's the other thing people, hands down, the biggest, is it dead? If they don't drop the price, it is. Everybody brought up the price.
Yeah.
So many people brought up how expensive it is and stuff like that.
It's very expensive.
But even that, is that the silver bullet? Hey, guess what? It's only $350 now. It's only, you know what I mean? It's $350 now. Okay, but like, what is the experience you've heard people talking about this that you go, I can't have to play that, but it's just too expensive right now. Oh, I gotta play that. It's just too expensive. I don't know what the game is or if it exists, but
called Astrobot Rescue Mission 2.
that is true. If you think things are too expensive, well, go to patreon.com/kindafunny. Are we
some
too
more money.
expensive? You can find out when you look at the prices. But mainly, you can go there to get the show ad-free. You can get dozens and dozens of exclusive programming each and every month only on patreon.com/kindafunny. But guess what, Jack? You're not on patreon.com/kindafunny. So here's a word from our sponsor.
Shout out to Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode. We all love gobbling up content, and we have an understanding of what subscriptions we use. Or do we? Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions when the actual total is closer to $200. That's right. You out there. You could be wasting hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions you don't even know about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Rocket Money has saved some of us here at Kinda Funny a ton of money, and it can help you too. Stop throwing away your money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. ROCKETMONEY.com/kindafunny.
Blessing, what happened this week in PlayStation?
We talked a little bit about this already, but Sony is ending support for Dreams
Motherfucker!
in September. This is Ollie Walsh at Polygon. Media Molecule, the Sony-owned developer of Dreams, has announced it will end live service support for the PS4 game creation system in September as it concentrates on a different project. Quote, "We made the difficult decision to discontinue live support for Dreams after the 1st of September 2023 to shift our focus to an exciting new project," the studio said in a blog post. I guess what? Do we do a moment of silence? How do we treat this?
Well, the problem is when you do the moment of silence on the podcast, people have that thing.
Oh,
where they
it
put
cuts
it,
out
it
the
skips out,
silence.
so the silence doesn't even work. But we can
Damn.
still do it.
All
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a moment of silence for the one and only Dreams. Super sad,
Super sad.
you know?
I agree with that.
Thank you.
It was the most
for the
human.
sound effect.
You know, it's funny because the day before this announcement happened, we talked about it on Games Daily. It was one of the ones for the news section we're doing at the end where we just chat with the super chats. What a weird story for Dreams. What a great idea. Again, I think from a PlayStation of a different age. That was my whole point of this is like, when we were talking about it, I'm like, in the same way I think VR wouldn't get greenlit today, I don't think Dreams would get greenlit again either. Because like PlayStation now is AAA, narratives, visuals, graphics, let's go. And Media Molecule is the cool arts table with the popsicle sticks and doing all sorts of crazy shit with clay you'd never expect. But like for them to give you this giant toolbox of games creation is cool and sounds so cool. But like if I was PlayStation and I was looking at it, I'd go like, where's the money? You know what I mean? Like Little Big Planet had DLC after DLC after DLC of superheroes costumes and this, that, and the other. I mean, the real partnerships with DC and Marvel and all that stuff, like, right? Like, that didn't happen in Dreams because you could create everything in Dreams and yada, yada, yada. And, like, since the launch of Dreams, you know, when we were talking about this show, and I'll do it right now, we'd be mid-conversation about it, and I would go to my little PS I Love You folder, right? And then I would click over, indreams.me, and it tells you how many people are online, right? Like, what's actually going on with it right now. Oh, I got to sign in. I'm signed out. But, you know, you go in there and it tells, and it was never like this colossal number.
No.
It was always this thing of like, oh, right now there are 705 players online right now. 705 players online
crowd,
right now. And again, I think when we've done this experiment in the past, it's usually around 1,200. And this is years ago, probably when we were doing this. It was still at work from home. And it's a bummer, but also understandable, but also, you know what I mean? Like, when Dreams launched, we finally got it. I was like, yes, oh my God, I love Little Big Planet. I love Media Molecule. I played through the stuff they put out. I had a lot of fun with it. But then when I went in to create stuff, right? Like, it was like, oh, this is next level creation. Like, there's a lot of tutorials and a lot of things to do, but I am overwhelmed at how much stuff there is to do and how much to make my vision come alive it would happen. Obviously, thousands of KindaFunny of Dreams fans rose to that occasion and banded together, and I've been in a bunch of their games, and they have sculptors and VO people and audio people, and it's like, that's fucking awesome, and I love that happened. But why isn't this game free on PlayStation Plus? Why isn't it pre-installed on PlayStation 5s? Why isn't there a PlayStation 5 version? Why isn't it on the PlayStation Plus extra?
Why isn't it on PC?
Why isn't it on PC?
Why isn't it a Premier PSVR 2? Like, that's the thing that frustrates me about the treatment of Dreams, is that I feel like Media Molecule as a studio tried way harder to market this thing than PlayStation themselves.
And God bless them with the impies and everything else. And yeah, I mean, like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things of, I don't want to ever, I'm not taking shots at anybody. I feel like with Media Molecule, and Abby just left, but like when you had Abby there and you had Tom there and you had like a development team and a community that had a voice. Whereas I really feel like I don't get that vibe from Sucker Punch. I don't get that vibe from Naughty Dog. They blog here and there, but it's like you're very much doing the corporate thing of what's, you know, and that's the job. I get it. Whereas like this felt like they were an indie studio doing something, but they were PlayStation.
Yeah, and like it's frustrating from the idea that there are so many steps. Like, from the release of Dreams, I remember us talking about it all the time and being like, oh, well, if they do this when the PS5 comes out, okay, well, oh man, when the next PSVR comes out, if they do this, oh man, PlayStation is porting all their games to PC. I think that was probably a topic for us at some point, right? At least it was a talking point. The idea of, man, once they put this thing on PC, the way that Dreams is gonna blow up is gonna be huge, because the tools are so approachable for people that, you know, aren't super deep into game design or don't have a super deep skill set of knowledge of how to use Unreal and other video game creation tools. Dreams is approachable. Dreams is accessible. Dreams is something that is going to speak to such a wide audience, and being able to do that on PC is going to blow that up and open that up for so many people to get involved and create really cool creations with this thing. The fact that they never did that, for me, is like not just a missed opportunity. For me, it's upsetting. For me, like, we just missed something huge. Like, what Dreams could have been on PC.
Back to, like, you know, PlayStation believing or how much they invest in what their vision is as a company going forward, right? I remember the early days of Dreams where there were like conversations of like, well, maybe, and like this is happening behind the scenes of like, I think they talked about it in some official capacity of looking into like allowing people to make games in Dreams and then publish them and make money on them and do this thing. And it was like, I remember reading all that, like, not a fucking chance. Not a fucking chance PlayStation is going to do that unless this game got huge.
Like, for me, Dreams should have been an app on the dashboard, right? It should have been like a free, hey, this is YouTube for video games. You can download the app, you can play all these different Dreams for free, and then maybe you pay to actually get the creation tools, right? Or maybe you do PS Plus or something, right? Maybe it's $20. This should have been a thing that was way more widely accessible for the audience, because like, these tools are incredible, and I genuinely think that this was, I think we could have gotten to that point where people are publishing their Dreams and actually charging money, because for the stuff that we check out Dreams every year for the Impy Awards. I checked it out a couple years ago for the Blessing Show, and the things that people were making in Dreams are fantastic creations. Like, you know, a lot of them bled together in terms of art style, because they do have that Dreams fuzzy look, but there were plenty that did stand out. There were plenty that did have a lot of different ideas. There was one that we played for this last Impies that was like this first person horror game. I think it was called Friend Request. Friend Request, I think. And that one was really cool. I played that and I was like, dude, I'll totally buy this on Steam for like $10 or something and play through it. This is such a cool idea. But yeah, like Janet, I know you were with me on the MP Awards judging panel. Like, how do you take this news?
Yeah, I mean, this is really sad. I think I have a lot of the same sentiments that y'all do with the missed opportunities for making, I would say, so the product is so sound and it's so good, and there's such a passion between the people making Dreams and the people making games in Dreams and the people playing Dreams. Like, everyone that fucks with it. But the problem is it's hard to get people on board with it. For a number of reasons. One, the price point. Two, the inherent intimidation of a game that sells itself as a place to make games. That's always just a little bit intimidating because everyone always feels like they can't really be creative in that way. The tool set is complicated. You can do collab stuff, but the collab stuff's kind of more complicated than the more streamlined tool sets that you see in things like Little Big Planet or even Mario Maker in the more modern era. So it had enough going against it, like just enough to create enough hesitancy that turned into a form of resistance in terms of, I think, mainstream success. I think Dreams is something that everyone appreciates. And, we talked about this a bit for, I think it was either 1 or 2 episodes ago that we had the most underrated PlayStation game. And I mentioned Dreams being one of them. While super critically acclaimed, it's the thing that everyone's like, oh yeah, that's really cool, but no one really cares. I mean, obviously the people that care, and they care heavily, but we want, like, that could be so much bigger.
Yeah.
And there was such a frustration, I think, among us and so many people that really champion Dreams to make it more than what it was. And even myself, with all my passion for the game, and I'm like, oh, I always have it installed. Like, I went back to it, I tell Star all the time, but on New Year's Eve, and I'm like, let's boot it up and just search up fun stuff, search up New Year's Eve stuff. I've had so much fun looking at, fan-made versions of games that I like. Look at what are people doing with Jack and Daxter in Dreams. I went to a PlayStation Park in Dreams. That was awesome, and I told other people to go. We would hang out in the PlayStation Park, and it was so, like, there's so many cool things that happened in there. And yet it still just didn't get enough, I think, of the attention that it really needed. And part of that is the stuff that you guys mentioned, wanting it to be on PS, being like such a good, like, obviously it's got to go on PS Plus at some point. It never did. The PC thing, just the lack of ever making it into that market space aspect. Like, this could so easily be PlayStation's itch.io, but with like a dev toolkit inside, and it's not. And not that it necessarily needed to have that sales component. And obviously they talk about all the time how, there are people that made their game portfolio in Dreams that got jobs in like the industry through Dreams. So it's not like Dreams didn't have some aspect of, like of a career through line. Yes, of like a more practical, outside of the whole point of why they made Dreams. Like, when you look back at the interviews and the discussions back when they were first launching it, was they wanted video game development to be a hobbyist thing. They're like, the way you can pick up a guitar casually, but we want Dreams to be that. And while Dreams has those aspects, I think it has so much depth that there is that intimidation factor a little bit. So it's just like an unfortunate mix of things that we're going against it. And frankly, I knew this day was coming at some point. Obviously, this day comes at some point for pretty much every live service game.
Not DC Universe Online.
I'm still, almost every game. I'm still sad to see that it's here now, when I think, to y'all's point, there were so many boxes left unchecked. Like, if we could have just got, just a little something to get it more out there and have it be a little bit more of a conversation piece would have been nice before this happened. But I am excited for their next project. And I don't want to say that I would necessarily make this trade, but maybe I kind of would. Like, I love Media Molecule's work, and I love Dreams, but I also want to see something else other than Dreams. And if this is what it took, then I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, I think, it's this really interesting evolution from Little Big Planet, because there's plenty of people who got their jobs in game development through Little Big Planet as well. Like, we had people on, from Sumo Digital, which is funny because then they obviously did Little Big Planet stuff. But it is that idea that, I feel like Dreams is almost a game that was created for us. And what I mean by that is us three, obviously, Barrett, and then all of you watching or listening. It was a game like, people who play games love the idea of creating games. They'd love to do that. Let's make that. And that is like true that a lot of people listening and watching thought that's a cool idea and did it, but like not mainstream. And this always goes back to talking about PlayStations of different eras, and the PlayStation that greenlit Dreams versus the PlayStation that was PlayStation when Dreams was released, of just like, was the PlayStation that approved the Dreams, what was their metric for success? What did they expect it to sell copies wise? Where did they expect it to go? This is a game that came out and was critically acclaimed. It did really well. People did, in terms of review scores, people really did like it and thought it was cool. But yeah, it was never going to bury the needle in sales. But did they expect that? Did they want that? Where did they want it to go? Like, I think, stripping even Little Big Planet's so complicated as it went on, right? In terms of you can create levels. Well, now you can create full games. Now you can create whatever. And then Dreams becomes this thing like, Mario Maker, right, is so simple. Like, you can make a 2D Mario level, right? Like, you don't have to worry about it. Even Little Big Planet, I would screw things up when I was making my levels because it would suddenly be more 3D than I wanted it to be. Like, I am sad to see Dreams go, not because I played Dream a lot, but because of the potential, because of the community, because of the gem I think it was for PlayStation in terms of, like, look what you can do with games. But I'm excited to see it go because I really think Media Molecule's next game will be not mechanic-wise, but it will be like Tearaway. Here is a game. Here is a game with an objective and a start and a finish and a thing and a character and like what we're doing. And I don't think it'll be as open as like, it's several games that we made and we'll add to and we'll do this thing, but you can create whatever. Like, I think there'll be a creation component similar to Tearaway, but not like create, play, share with everybody as much as create your own world around it. And I think that could be really neat.
Next up, Shuhei Yoshida is now PlayStation Star's digital collectible. This is Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicles. Sony Interactive Entertainment's Shuhei Yoshida has been added to the PlayStation Star's loyalty program as a digital collectible.
So cute.
A bobblehead version of the PlayStation veteran can be unlocked simply by playing one of 6 games he has recommended. They are A Space for the Unbound, Before Your Eyes, Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Sifu, and The Night Witch. Greg, I think you're the only one in the world that's actually booted up PlayStation Stars. If I've already played Before Your Eyes, no, I had to boot it up again?
Yep.
God dang it. All right.
That was my thing, is I made the rookie mistake of course, thinking everyone knew about PlayStation Stars. So I tweeted about this today of like, this is the first PlayStation Stars. I'm excited. And so many people are like, oh my God, you got to play Before Your Eyes. Oh, you should play Cult of the Lamb. I'm like, no, like I realize it says 0%, but I have played those games. It's just that you need to do it in the thing to get it going. But I did. When I put it out, the one, the only, the Don Imran Khan would respond like, you should play. You would really like A Space for the Unbound. Like, I don't know anything about that game.
Michael Hyam loved it. He was playing it. I've seen him playing it.
A magical adventure about 2 high school sweethearts at the end of their school days and the end of the world. Explore a crumbling town and help friends face their inner demons, which could be the key to stopping reality itself from disintegrating. And don't forget to pet the cats.
This sounds like such a Greg Miller game.
It does, right?
I'm playing it. I'm liking it so far. I picked it up and I stopped for a long time, so I don't, I'll have to get back to it. The art style is really cute. The first, I forgot if it's chapter based, I think it is, but the first 2 chapters, the first one's it's very straightforward, but then it gets kind of funky and trippy, which is cool. It's sort of nodding to that, that description you just read where it's talking about the end of the world and all this kind of surrealist, trippy, otherworldly aspect. You get a little hint of that at the end of the first chapter, and then it goes back into being very much a mundane setting. So I'm still in the mundane portion, so I can't speak to when is this gonna pick up and I'm gonna be in tears. I don't see that through line yet, but everyone guarantees that I'll get there. The writing's quite good, and so far it's very much sort of fetch, quest, chain, adventure energy, left to right. Oh, you talk to somebody, they're like, I really could use this pillowcase. Then 4 feet later, oh, look, I found a pillowcase on the floor. I guess it's for the other guy. It's that gameplay flow, at least that early on. But again, everyone does guarantee that it's going to really pick up in a way that is going to make this on a lot of people's best ofs for different aspects. So I'm waiting for that part to kick in, but it is quite beautiful and I'm enjoying my time. It does have a platinum on PlayStation, and I think it's pretty achievable, it seems, and it's kind of I think a game that lends itself to doing all of the things that it sets you out to do, and it has a nice little construction. It's very cozy, has a cool construction of at one point you and your girlfriend make this list of things you want to do, and it's oh, why don't we just do this now? It's got a nice, quaint, cozy town feel to it. So I think you should at least check it out. Yeah, Space for the Unbound.
I will do that, everybody. Not soon.
What's the Night Witch? I haven't played the Night Witch.
I've not heard of the Night Witch.
Right?
Which means that I should put notifications on.
I mean, if Shu likes it.
Yeah. I mean, whenever Shu speaks, I listen because he's recommended quite a few games where I'm like, you were right. You're absolutely right. Chicory played because of Shu and because of Janet Garcia, I believe.
Thank you.
And then
the Night Witch is a handcrafted Metroidvania shoot 'em up adventure, reminding all of the importance of saying thank you. I remember this game. Shoot 'em up spellcasting sorcery. Encounter evil foes and choose whether you wield your magic or use your weapons and wits to take them out.
This looks cool. I'm not the biggest fan of the art style. Like the art style reminds me of like almost like Flash game type art style, even though it is pretty detailed.
Just shit on the indie devs all day long. Why don't you?
Listen, you know how I feel about indie games. It's like, get more people working on your game. Why is there only 2 of you?
What the fuck? Oh my god. It's published by Team 17, so they've published other games I've liked. So sure, why not? Why not?
Why not? There you go.
Why?
PS Plus Extra games for April have been announced. For PS Plus Extra, you're getting Kena Bridge of Spirits, Doom Eternal, Rise Republic, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus plus The Old Blood, Slay the Spire, Monster Boy, The Evil Within, Bassmaster Fishing, Paradise Killer, and Sackboy. And then for PS Plus Premium's April lineup, you're getting Doom, Doom 2, Doom 64, Doom 3, and Dishonored Definitive Edition. Cool. Great lineup.
A solid list, yeah, for sure.
Now it's time for PlayStation Picks. This is, of course, where we talk about the games that have come out this week and the games each of us have picked to play on PlayStation. The drop this week looks like this. There's Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse for PS5 and PS4.
Whoa.
What up?
This is an old-ass list.
Yeah.
This is ancient.
Wait, what
It's
did
very
I...
old.
Before your eyes, DC Justice League, we played
I was
that.
wondering, I'm like,
the
didn't the
Wreck,
Wreck
I
come out?
platinum that
What
already.
went
Because
wrong here?
not Blessing. Greg was like, oh yeah, the Wreck, don't play it, don't bother.
Yeah, I know.
This is not
Except
what's
for the
coming
platinum
out.
that I went and got and wasted a bunch of time.
April. What month are we in?
I'll tell you what, Janet, I saw you tweet about it. I think you streamed it, but I did a DC Justice League since you did that.
Okay.
The Cosmic Chaos. I thought that was really cute. It's
very cute.
I played it for the night and didn't come back to it. It wasn't like it's like the most engaging thing, but I was like, oh, this is cute. This is fun. I like
Yeah.
all the costumes.
It is better than I thought it would be, because I went in being like, this might
Sure.
just be the day of my flop day, because I also played Oni,
Flop
Road to the Mightiest
day.
Oni that day, and it was awful, terrible game, really bad. Then I played this, and I'm like, you got to carry, and you're honestly on a regular day, this would be like the worst thing I play. But yeah, I thought it was really cute. Like the art style is very charming. It's like very much a mindless, chill game with like a little bit more depth than I was expecting. Definitely a kind of kid-friendly, more simplistic than even like a Minecraft dungeon sort of vibe. Like you're walking around, you can fly. It was nice. It was better than I was expecting. So good enough for me. I haven't returned to it either.
Good enough for me.
For me.
I'm down to return to it, but I would want to return to it with Isaiah or just somebody else, because I think there's just not quite enough there for me to want to do it by myself.
Sure.
And I like the fact that like you have all these different characters that all have different abilities. I feel like the synchronicity between the two would be more appealing than just being solo dolo, switching between all of them.
Sure.
Well, the drop for this week. I think I just got for the one from last month. Maybe that's what happened.
But it happens, man.
But yeah, this week you're getting Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened remake for PS5 and PS4, and then Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection for PS4. Greg,
Cool.
which pick to play on PlayStation this week?
I, believe it or not, am still playing the redacted game from last week, and then got another game that I barely scratched the surface on, but also redacted until tomorrow.
Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man 2's review
let's
embargo's
go.
up tomorrow.
Let's go.
They're doing a weird thing where
They're
the reviews go up
soft-launching it for
before they
some
talk
reason.
about the release date. And I just be Venom was right.
Janet, what'd you pick to play?
I'm playing Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, right? How old is this document that we're looking at here? Everything's just very old on this section of the show. Still working towards the platinum. Like I've mentioned before, when I stream, I have a daily sub goal, and if that goal's hit, I do a platinum, or I do a trophy hunt where I get at least one trophy, and I'll play for like whatever amount of time. If I can get a couple in the time, I'll get a couple. I'm doing the new Game Plus, so I'm replaying through it. Couple things that stand out. One, I really hope the next game has a streamer mode. To my knowledge, let me know if I'm wrong, because I looked for it. There is no streamer mode to get rid of the licensed music. So every time I upload my VODs, I have to do the mute song for every second. It's awful. So I hope they add that in there. The trophy that I got, I forgot the name of it offhand, but it's when you go to your dad's grave. So I did that one. The game help in this is also very cool that they have that. I just looked at the game help within the game. It told me where to go in the cemetery. I went there. It was all good. Easy peasy. The other thing I spent my time working on during my replay is, I'm pretty early. I just got to like where they had like Christmas dinner or whatever. So right before that, they give you like a general mission where it's like, okay, you fight a couple guys, like whatever. I'm working on the challenges. I noticed, funny enough, like there's so many things you can do in the game, but I really kind of just, button mash and chill my way through. It's not hard to look stylish playing it because of the takedowns and all that. But I realized like, oh my God, I'm missing some really basic trophies. Like I never really did ceiling takedowns. I did a lot of stealth where I was perched on things, but I was never like on the ceiling or on the wall doing like the specific takedowns. So I'm spending my time just focusing on those takedowns, which is really fun. Like I really like playing this game stealthily when I can. So it just gives me another like tool that I wasn't really using to do that. And I'm also knocking out those challenges, little ones where you like type it on the computer and Peter's like, hey, this is going to be you jumping on the thing. One thing I noticed when you try to retry those and get the best score is there's only like 2 types of dialogue you get, and they just repeat over and over again. So I heard, you know, when I did this with MJ, shut up, Pete. Like, can we just like turn the, and if I was playing like not streaming,
Peter.
If I was not streaming, I probably would just, I don't know, mute the TV and put on a song or something, because it's very unappealing to have that. Very deep cut nitpick. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too specific here in the weeds, but that I found that to be an unappealing part of this process, but I'm enjoying getting the, you know, trophies overall, and it's a nice way to double dip into what did this game do? What do I want to see in the continuation of the franchise as we kind of gear up for Spider-Man 2? So that's what I've been working on PlayStation.
Oh, yeah. I played before.
What have you been playing?
I played Before Your Eyes on PSVR 2. That's a very good video game. I had a very good time with it. I think you, Janet, and you, Greg, were right in terms of, oh, this is a game to play on PSVR 2. Like this, if you're getting PSVR 2, pick this game up and play through it. The story's powerful. Like it's really engaging, especially with the mechanic of blinking your eyes in order to progress time in certain points. Like I think it's an engaging mechanic. I didn't even think about the fact that when I was booting it up, like, oh, I'm not going to need controllers for this thing. Like I can put down the controllers and just play this with my eyes. Like the whole game is designed around that, which I think is really neat. The story, writing, dialogue, all engaging throughout. Like there wasn't a moment where I was bored by what was happening. And I think mechanically, like, yeah, having moments where it is, oh man, I really wanted to hear what this conversation is about, and then at certain points you're like fighting to keep your eyes open because you don't want to blink. Because it's like, oh man, no, what is this? No. And then other times where you blink and you just don't think about the fact that you're blinking because you forget, and it's like, oh fuck, I was watching that. Like, oh, that's on me though. Like those are, I found those moments to be very cool.
There's hacks, of course. You know, you can pause. You can pause and blink during it.
I never thought about that.
I didn't either. Yeah. I didn't either until I was looking back for platinum stuff where I was like, well, how do I do this? And there was like the one of the, where it's like, you know, Eyes of Steel or some shit, and it was like, you can. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
that would have made sense.
That's really good. That's really good. But yeah, the game was really good. Like I there's not really one bad thing I could say about the game aside from like me having
you had a bug
right? where I lost my save.
That's something to talk about.
Yeah, but that bummed me out. That bummed me out because I only had 4 minutes left in the game.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was at the end of the game. I didn't realize I was at the end, but like I had to stop because I was at the office and we were doing a meeting. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop for the meeting and play when I get home. And then got home, save wasn't there, and I was like, oh, it must be a cloud thing. Got back to the office, and my save was gone. I'm like, what's going on here? And I look online, and I see threads of people being like, yeah, I lost my save before your eyes. And I'm like, ah, dang, okay, maybe that's what it is. But like, I mean, for most people, I imagine you're gonna play this game through one playthrough. Like, don't let that dissuade you from playing the game, because like it's only an hour and a half long, like something like that. And so, and I would recommend playing it in one sitting. Like I don't know why. I do know why I stopped, but I would recommend not stopping. Like just play it all the way.
Throw it under the bus. Every time you tell the story, you yell about the meeting you had to go to. God forbid there's a kind of funny meeting.
Like, why do we have meetings at this company, at this job, at this workplace? Why do meetings?
Lousy ass talking to each other.
God.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't. But I was emotional. Like I did feel
just a manly mist going on.
No, like I a little manly mist. No, I cried during some video games. I don't know why I didn't cry during this one, because it was like I was like, damn. There was a time where I took off the headset. I looked at Greg and I was like, man, that's heavy. That's some heavy stuff. But I don't think I actually shed a tear.
All right.
Maybe in the sequel. Maybe in Before Your Eyes 2, I'll cry.
Well, we'll see if you cry in Horizon Burning Shores, which is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be talking about that very soon. I want you to write in with your reviews, your thoughts next week, because it should line up, right? That's what we'll be talking about next week when we get there to see what Aloy's been up to.
You looked at the calendar. Don't look at me for confirmation. I don't know.
I'm telling you. Well, it's next week, right?
Are we going to review it next week?
Is it out next week?
Oh, I guess it is, yeah. All right, cool.
I'm not crazy. You're all crazy.
Yeah, the 19th it comes out, right?
Yeah.
6 days.
We'll be talking about it here next week. So, of course, write in with all your questions, comments, concerns, or what you think, what you thought of the game, what you want to know about the game from us. You, of course, can write in for free at kindafunny.com/PSILY. But, of course, if you want the full PS I Love You XOXO experience. Go to patreon.com/kindafunny. Over on patreon.com/kindafunny, you can write in with your questions, comments, concerns. You could get the show ad-free. You could get dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. Well, yeah, if you went all the way back of monthly exclusive programming. And of course, you can get cool merch and stuff you can only get on patreon.com/kindafunny. However, if you have no bucks toss our way, no big deal. You can get PS I Love You XOXO each and every Friday on youtube.com/kindafunnygames and podcast services around the globe. If you're on the Epic Game Store playing Fortnite or Rocket League or whatever on your old PlayStation 4 or 5, please input the code KindaFunny when you can support a creator and support us. For now, though, we're going to go play more redacted games. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.